Hey, welcome. Good morning. This is Talking Niagara on Thursday, July 31st. Hey, wow. So the end of the July already.
Oh,
We're
God.
welcoming in August tomorrow.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's our
Welcome.
August holiday tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. It's the August 1st
Weekend.
holiday. Yeah. The
Yeah,
civic holiday.
yeah. I don't know what that one's called. It just seems to be a nameless holiday.
It's called the civic holiday.
Yeah, I know. But that just is a dumb name.
Yeah. You're right. It is absolutely dumb.
Call
Call it
it some.
Tecumseh Day. Why don't they call it Tecumseh Day or John Norton Day after the heroic Indigenous people who helped save Canada from
I've got
invasion? Why
I've got
don't
an
why don't
idea.
they call it Red Hill Day or
Yeah,
something like that?
yeah. Let's call it Dave Wheeler Day.
I'm with that. I'm good with that.
Anything but nameless blank civil holiday.
Yeah. Yeah, look, we have all kinds of people we could name it after. We've got men and women out the yin yang. We can
Yeah.
name it
Oh yeah.
after uh, notable Canadians,
Oh yeah.
banding and best, whatever you want. We have tons and tons of people. But what does unimaginative Canada do? Oh, we don't know who to name it after. So what we'll do is we'll call it Civic Holiday. And
Yeah.
everyone else is, oh, good, good, good. We really don't have to make a decision, do we? We'll
No,
just
at
call it
least you
Civic
see, at
Holiday.
least when it comes to like the May holiday, we've got Victoria Day. Even though most people are, many people alive today wouldn't even know who Queen Victoria was or what her contribution to the world was.
I uh, I was surprised it was called Victoria Day because when we were kids, we always called it Firecracker Day. Oh, it's
Mm,
Firecracker Day. Firecracker. And
mm.
then somebody says, oh, no, we got corrected by somebody in grade 7 or 8 or something. Oh, it's Queen Victoria Day.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing for us. Like, who was she? Who was that?
Yeah, but at least you were of a generation where you actually learnt history. That might have been the introduction to who Queen Victoria was.
Well, actually, I got to say we would have known who Queen Victoria was because I got a great education. I I'm telling you that I was an unwilling student and I just kind of did anything just as much as I had to do. My marks were in the low 60s or high 50s or low 60s. But when when I go around and I talk to people and just the stuff that I learned about history and geography and mathematics and stuff like that, my elementary teachers got into my brain, and like I started off less ignorant than the average person because of my teachers.
Yeah.
Like we knew we knew where Africa was. We knew where Timbuktu was. Like it was asked the other day. We knew where the Nile River was. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
We knew a
You
bunch
could
of stuff.
you could if you were asked to point out somewhere in the world, you'd probably be in the right region. Wouldn't necessarily be able to put your finger down the Nile River, but you'd be in the right part of Africa.
Yeah, I am appalled by the Canadian ignorance. I mean, I'm super appalled by the American ignorance. It's like it's no reflection on them, but their system really makes them stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say makes them stupid, but
Well,
because they have stupid conclusions because of their ignorance. Like when in on TV a lot when this business with Gaza was coming, a lot of people would say, "Well, why don't the Gazans, why don't the Arab countries take in the Gazans? Why don't they take them in?" Well,
why
like
should
why should they like?
yeah.
And nobody seemed to realize that all these Arab countries in and around there had absorbed millions of Palestinians over the last few wars, and they don't want to leave. That was another thing. They don't want to leave. Why? They're supposed to be Palestine. That was the law. That was what the UN did.
Yeah.
Divide the countries up into a Jewish country and an Arab country.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they say, well, why don't they just take these people? Well, because that's their home. And he can't get in there because they read the newspaper or the Fox, particularly Fox or some right-wing rag, and they have some ignorant senator blabbing on about something like that. And right from, yeah, so that's the kind of ignorance I'm worried about.
Yeah,
But
I get it. And hey, if you, I saw this thing at school about a school program in America where they were putting up the shapes of the U.S. states. I tell you, that's one thing I couldn't do because they're all square.
no, they're not.
I knew I'd get you. Anyway, yeah, there you go. But I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that though because I'm just not familiar enough with them. I could show you.
I've got a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I know the shape of Florida. I know the shape of New York. I know the shape of California. But some of the things like North and South Dakota, I couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I would do fairly well at that, I would think.
Yeah. All right.
I would miss the Midwest part where the Indiana, Illinois, and all them. They kind of like I would get those mixed up, I think.
Yeah, because they're all square, aren't they?
Yeah.
Ish.
And they all start with I.
Yeah. Okay. So Mike is here now. So hey, you can say what we were talking about before the show.
Yes, Mike. At 8:38:08 of the meeting, 8 hours 38 minutes and 9 seconds into the meeting on Tuesday, near the very end of it, Lori Lococo brought up the issue that Mike and Cushman and Sarah Ward have brought to fore, and that Ed Smith himself, the reporter for Pointer, that we read his article the other day, they finally brought it up to the city. It doesn't seem like anyone on city council seems to be too interested in it, but this is a continuous, ongoing thing. Eric Nichols actually spoke well of it, what they were doing. It was a very expensive operation. As we know, to refresh everybody's mind, Mike and Sarah Ward have found oily discharges or chemical-like discharges in a channel that led to the Welland River, and they want answers about it. It's a come and go kind of thing. So the city, hats off to Mike and Sarah because they got the city going, they got the ministry going, they got them inspecting their sewers, they got them doing a lot of preliminary work, and that was mentioned by Lori. And what was happening in this, Eric Nichols described it as a back corner issue now because they don't really know how to proceed. Yeah. They've looked into the sewer systems. They don't find anything there. They don't know where the source of this, which is very disturbing. They've looked and they can't find it. Because the ministry's being unsuccessful, they're sort of dumping it on the city to continue it.
But I don't think the city has the doesn't have the capability of looking into it in the same way as the ministry does.
And it's very costly right now, too, without very little results. Now, the one takeaway that I will take, I will say this, and I said it a number of times when we reviewed some of Mike's stuff here. Like Eric said, the ministry, for some reason, doesn't want to tell us what it is. So they've done a test. They've come to some kind of determination, but they won't tell us what it is.
Yeah.
And Eric Nichols put it, for some reason, they don't want to tell us what it is. It seems to me that's at this particular point, it's the most important thing. It will give you a clue as to where it's coming from, or could give you a clue, because if you knew what it was, you can now look for sources of that type of pollutant. It seems to me extraordinary that the Ministry of Environment comes around, tests this stuff, and won't tell you what it is.
Yeah.
Point of that? What's the point of that?
Well,
and then says to the city, "Oh, we're leaving it up to you to find the source of it. But guess what? We're not going to tell you what it is." Does that make a whole lot of sense to you?
It doesn't make any sense to me at all. I'm very concerned about it. Especially since if there's some chemicals in that mix that might well be dangerous, we should be concerned about that.
And yet, I didn't hear one counselor aside from Lori. Well, they could have, because I was listening to it sort of in the background. I watched the first one, so they could have. I'll take that one back. But I really didn't hear the question, how come they're not telling us what it is?
Yeah. Okay, so Mike says the last time the region, city, and province were looking at the sewers and Wayne Gates pulled up to asking questions, the city is lost. MECP has done a lot of tests. How could they not work together? Yeah. And by the way, Mike's got another concern. He says Gary wants his shirt back.
You know, I didn't steal your shirt. Gary is like super jealous of my shirt and my style. As you can see, I am I'm a dapper dresser here for sure. Look at that hat. Oh, super shirt. Now, Gary pretends he doesn't like it, and he puts on a pair of sunglasses when I look at when my shirt comes. But we know he's super jealous of it, and he says I stole it, from him. But there is a little bit of size differential between me and Gary. I think Gary means that I might have stole his tent.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. So certain NGOs are stating that weapons are still flowing from Canada to Israel, despite the denials by the Canadian government that there's not been any exports of arms to Israel since January 2024.
Yes. What do we know about weapons? Right? What do we know? They are money. If you have an arms industry, you're going to make money. You're going to make gold. The number one supplier of arms around the world is the U.S., followed probably by Russia. Others, every country seems to have an arms manufacturer. Chinese are big, of course. It is money. We hear about the military-industrial complex. It's a thing. Remember when Biden was asked about Ukraine, right, and how it's going, and he says, yeah, but the weapons made are made by good union jobs right here. In other words, that was his main focus. It was like how many arms are being made by the military service. So Canada says it's not sending any military stuff over there, but it is. And I could tell you that it's because of money, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Somebody's looking the other way.
And the whole point is that Israeli tax authority is showing that Canadian goods still enter Israel. Yara Safini of the Palestinian Youth Movement is also saying that there's several reports there that are showing without a doubt the true extent of Canadian ongoing material support for Israel amongst this genocide, right?
Yeah, this is really unacceptable. In January 2024, we're not supposed to be giving them any. I suppose we could give them other things like foodstuffs or medicine or something, but absolutely no military stuff. But our military people are saying, and they're not even guarding it. Simple journalism. When the government was asked, they wouldn't answer the question. Of course, the Israeli government wouldn't answer the question. So it's simple journalism, looking at exports, import.
Export and import records. Yeah. Okay. So one of the things I would say in Israel, in this article, it says Israeli import data and publicly available shipping records appear to contradict this claim, but they don't get specific about what is being imported, what the record showed being imported.
Yeah, well, there's some of the stuff is as simple as bullets.
Yeah. Well, bullets, of course, in a war, key component, because
Especially where the IDF is using.
Yeah, one would hope
a
weapon would last for several years, right? You know what I mean? A weapon should last for several years. Bullets only last a few seconds.
So the problem here is somebody's making money, so follow the money.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think Canadian arms manufacturers having the opportunity to make some really good coin here, because we got a war going on. As ugly as that sounds, I don't think they want to miss out on making that, that money.
Yeah.
And I think probably the biggest concern here is the inept Canadian government.
Yeah.
It just, when I read it, I thought to myself, here's another example of the right hand not knowing what the left hand is doing. An inept government making a rule, but then not knowing how to go ahead and fulfill it. I'll tell you, somebody I know works in the federal government, and when they were working the first few years they were working in the federal government, said, I can't believe how many people don't know what they're doing, or just complete weight in this place. Like, there are so many people who are incompetent here. Why are they here? And they got a job that they do, right? And they have to deal with incompetent people who just get in their way, don't know what to do. It was a big surprise to them. And they were talking to another government worker, the much older one, and the guy just said, "Get used to it. That's always the way it is here. There is all this weight in here. I don't know. They just get their jobs because they're supposed to. Some of it's through diversity and equity things. They need a black person, so they dump one in. You know what I mean? Instead of looking for a qualified one, that takes too long."
Just to be clear, of course, the Canadian government doesn't sell arms. Government doesn't produce arms, doesn't sell arms to Israel or the Israeli government, but it does regulate sales by between Canadian and Israeli companies. So
So I get back to what I was just saying. How come, if the government makes that pronouncement, how come they don't have the wherewithal to make sure that the producers don't do that?
Yeah. And essentially, I suspect what is going on here is that, hey, we can make these weapons. We can actually ship them across the border to the United States and then export them from there. Things like that is going on.
Yeah. So I lost the article. Come on there. Yeah. So I mean, I read this a few days ago, so I got to catch up a little bit on it. So actually, this is just, I don't know. I don't know if the government's capable of actually really coming down on this, because the pressure to sell these things would be on both sides, the receiver and the sender.
Yeah.
That group of people who are making the weapons and sending them there, and those group of people that are receiving them. I don't know if the government makes these announcements, if they have, like, as you said, the government themselves don't. So they're contractors. And here's one. CBC News has examined both sets of records at at time of publication, the searchable website of the Israeli Tax Authority details 2025 imports of Canadian bullets, and this is 2025, so well into the war, and other military hardware of a kind that Ottawa has said are not being and cannot be shipped to Israel. The shipping data gives detailed tracking of military. So there is nobody's trying to cover this up. They just ignored the government.
Yeah.
Government says, don't send that stuff. Oh, sure. But they just keep sending it, making money off of it.
Well, at the end of the day, unless there's somebody in authority in the ports that is saying, oh, looking at the list that's the export list that the company's providing, and they're saying, oh, this contains weapons and this is on the banned export list. Unless there's somebody doing that, those things are going to go out.
And this is another way they could. This is another way they could dodge it here, because it might not be fully developed weapon. It could be parts of weapons. And in this case, Canada is mostly provider of components to Israel rather than finished weapons, systems or vehicles. So you can get away with sending a component. You know what I mean? If you want to. You can send the lead for the bullet,
Yeah, or you can send wheels, tank wheels.
So it's really
vehicle wheels or something like that, right?
Sure, it's still arms.
Yeah,
still arms. Really. No, we did not sell them any military equipment, but you sold them the cannon to go on their tank.
Yeah.
We sold them the steel for the cannon, that kind of thing. So it could get kind of murky, but it seems to me that the biggest takeaway I get out of this is I'm just rolling my eyes when I read it a few days ago. It's just another kind of ineptitude of the Canadian government. We keep running into these things over and over again. Nobody expects the government to run smoothly or efficiently. But when you make a pronouncement, when a government makes a pronouncement, no offensive weapons from Canada going to Israel in an attempt to put pressure on Israel to stop the war, and just a flood of weapons goes anyway, nobody seems to know anything about it. The government hasn't made a comment on this right now. So CBC and other journalists, and just go and do simple journalism. Nobody's even trying to hide it. It's right there in the records.
Yeah.
What's going on here? How come if Canada says this, but it's meaningless? And over and over again, you get the feeling anytime Canada says something, you just don't have to pay attention to it because they got no teeth in their bite,
Yeah. And what they're saying here is specific sales are not detailed, but there was $2.25 million fell under the export control list category, including bombs, torpedoes, rockets, missiles, and other explosive devices, and charges and related equipment and accessories. It's the and accessories part that, possibly makes up a lot of that.
Yeah. Like, oh, we didn't sell them the tank, but we sold them the engine for the tank.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not selling them lethal weapons. We sold them a tank in pieces. So all they have to do is put it together. That's a bit facetious. But what does the government say in this article? I can't remember what their comeback was. Do you see that?
So no, I see there's as yet no explanation from the government of Canada about the discrepancy data showing arms transfers occurred and continue to occur, but the government denies that is happening.
The only thing that makes more money than weapons is dope. So arms manufacture and distribution is a big thing. That's one of the you ever wonder why Al-Qaeda or ISIS or any of them are always seem to be well armed. They can go to the Philippines and be super well armed, and that's because of the huge amount of military weapons out there. The United States lost $80 billion worth of their military equipment to the Taliban.
Yeah.
Much more of it was lost to ISIS in Iraq. The Iraqi army, which was huge and had hundreds of billions of dollars of American equipment, was defeated within a few weeks. And all those tanks, the guns, the bullets, the flak jackets, and everything, that all went over to ISIS. It got spread all over the world. 80 billion in little Afghanistan. Afghanistan is not a big place population wise, but they have the U.S. government put $80 billion into their military. They were defeated in a matter of weeks. The same thing. All the helicopters that were there, the bullets, the flak jackets, the tanks, the armored vehicles, they all went over to the Taliban.
Yeah.
$80 billion. That is a lot of rifles and bullets. You can imagine them selling them everywhere, making a huge amount of money off of them.
Yeah. And aside from, so September 10th last year, Foreign Minister Melanie Joly, who had pledged to prevent such exports, said, "We will not have any form of arms or parts of arms to be sent to Gaza, period." Right? She said this 10th of September last year, 1 week before shipment went out, according to the data. How they're being sent and where they're being sent is irrelevant. It's,
Yeah. So there you have it. There's the government making a pronouncement, and within a week, another shipment goes over. Nobody's paying attention to what the government said.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, if the journalist had to dig in and find out where they were hiding it, how they were doing it clandestinely, no, they didn't. It's not, there's nothing changed. It's ordinary, everyday shipping and receiving. Like, nobody's trying to hide anything. The government's saying this, and nobody's paying attention to the government and shipping them as they normally do, weapons for Israel, and then sending them and being imported on the other side without anyone trying to hide it. It's just ordinary, everyday shipping and receiving records, which tells you what good is the Canadian government making a pronouncement like that if they don't do anything, if they just watch as the weapons just keep going without interruption.
Yeah. Okay. And the other thing, and it's like, hey, I can do anything. I just tell, here's my story, Mr. Government. Here's my reality over here. I'm just doing what I want to do anyway.
Well, they're not even telling them a story. The government's saying to them, don't send any more weapons. Don't sell any more weapons to Israel. That's what the government says. And what the companies do, just completely ignore it. They don't say anything. They just go ahead and keep doing what they've been doing and making money off of Israel, and doing it in such a way to say, whatever you say doesn't make any difference, because we're not even going to try to hide this.
Yeah.
We're going to go and ship it as we always shipped it, right out in the open. They're going to import it as they always imported it, right out in the open. No one's trying to cover this up. They just ignored the government completely and just kept doing business as usual. Now the government doesn't even know. You could see the kind of work that the journalists had to do here, which was quite minor.
Yeah.
And they admitted here, like, all we have to do is look at the shipping and receiving records.
Yeah.
Ordinary, publicly accessed shipping and receiving records.
And you can probably get them from most governments by just applying with the right form to that office.
Publicly accessible. So anyone.
Either a freedom of information request or something.
No, you don't have to have a freedom of.
Yeah. No,
that's what the whole point of this is. These are public assets. All you had to go to is the web page or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and see.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing hidden here. They're not even trying to cover it up. It is right out in the open, like you're sending. If you're sending bicycles, and it's the same thing. You put bicycles and send it to Israel, right? Well, there, bullets, send it to Israel. Nobody's trying to hide it. It's right out in the open.
Yeah.
So what is the point of the government making a pronouncement like that if they don't even follow up?
Oh, absolutely.
And then when presented with this, they kind of don't know what to even say about it. You know, complete, like, no wonder we're so frustrated here, because the government, it comes across as very, very weak. If they say something like that and then they don't back it up, well, this is very, very frustrating. Oh, we're not going to send them any weapons, but guess what? That pronouncement came in January 24, and here we are in at the last days of July 25, and we find that the stream of weapons is not even being interrupted.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. After France and UK, Canada plans to recognize a Palestinian state.
Finally,
right?
As you said, go ahead.
But the conditions are the Palestinian Authority must hold elections in 2026 and commit to other democratic reforms.
Well, sure. Now unfortunately, that sounds a lot easier than it is. Look, we know that Mahmoud Abbas is about 90 years old, I think, right about now. We do know that the average Palestinian is very frustrated with the Palestinian Authority. Yeah. Palestinian Authority has tried to play moderate politics with Israel. It has recognized Israel's right to exist and all these other things. And this was supposed to bring advantages. Put away your guns and put up your vote and let's talk. Well, that was the promise way back in Clinton, whatever, and yet it never happened, did it?
Yeah.
When they put away their guns, did that stop the settlers from taking their property? No, it didn't. So the settlers just kept coming in. Right now, they're shooting with impunity. They're killing Palestinians on the West Bank with impunity. So it didn't work. The Palestinians see that if you try to do things peacefully, the result is the same as if you try to do things violently. They're going to take your land. They're going to push you off of it. They, particularly in the West Bank, is worse and worse. They're trying to even annex the West Bank right now. So finally, Canada has found its spine. Thank you. When France said it was going to recognize Palestine, I said, great, but I wish my own country had the spine to do it. Then Britain stepped up, but there was conditions on that one. Right, they would recognize the Palestinian state if Israel did not do these things. Israel will promise to do them, and I think the Britain will jelly back out, but I hope not. I think they will cowardly back out. Canada has these same conditions, and it gives them a reason to back out. So I'm still waving the flag for France here. They just said they're going to recognize them, and that's it. So I don't like these conditions. I do like the fact that Canada is the third nation that said it's going to, third major G7 nation that says it's going to recognize Israel. And that's good. But I'm afraid they're going to find an excuse not to do it. Like I have a feeling that Britain will find an excuse not to do it, a reason to delay it.
Yeah.
France has got the biggest, has got the most amount of courage. They have, and believe me, France has a very big Jewish population. It has I think they got about 250,000 Jewish residents or citizens in France. So that would be.
That seems low.
No, I think it's only. Well, remember the war killed them.
I know. It just seems low, but I recognize that. I recognize that, and of course, many of those that survived the war escaped to Israel anyway, right?
Well, yeah, or West. Most of
West,
significant enough. Like the United States has the second largest Jewish population in the world. Like they got about 6 million, and and Israel's only got about 1 million more than that.
Yeah,
1 million or maybe two.
I think there's about 1 million Jews in Britain.
Yeah, Britain has a big, a significant
because many of the escaping Germans and other, Poles, Dutch, Austrian, and other nations escaped to Britain during the Second World War. Well, those Jews escaped to Britain during the Second World War.
There is, but Britain already had a
very
good population.
Number. Yeah.
And Canada's got a very vibrant Jewish community. Like, I mean, pretty significant. I don't know the numbers. I bet you it could be about 500,000. I'm not sure, but anyway,
yeah.
Go ahead. But anyway, France had the courage. They're going to that's it. They're going to recognize Palestine. They're the first G7. UK, I hope they don't jelly back out of it. I really don't. I really don't trust.
Okay, the according to a quick search, 335,000 Canadians are of Jewish origin.
Oh, it's a little bit lower than I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's about nearly 6 million in the States, though.
Yeah.
Of course that's the number one generation, but there's Jews everywhere. Remember? Sheinbaum, President Sheinbaum of Mexico, she comes from a very small Jewish community in Mexico. I don't know. I'd like to check up Sheinbaum a little bit more because I think she's. I have a feeling she's going. She's quite a good politician just by the few things I've heard her say, but that of course could be misleading. So I'd kind of like to drill down a little bit more, see how she's going to work against the United States or try to defend Mexico against the United States in this trade war. Mike Cushman, Trump now says that Canada backing Palestine might cause 30% tariff across the board. Oh, go take off. Take off. Seriously.
You're meaning Trump should, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, really. Jeez.
Okay.
Like that's going to make it like the trade thing is supposed to be trade. And now it's so there's going to be a 50% tariff on Brazilian products because they don't like how Brazil is doing their politics. What else? Seriously. Yeah. Like, are they going to say, okay, Madagascar, we don't like how your government, you don't take in enough U.S. tourists, so we're going to slap you with a 50% tariff. These are all excuses that Vance and or Rubio are going to use to get rid of this guy. They're going to sideline him. He's been physically sick. They talked about his physical ailments, the Jeffrey Epstein thing, and his bizarre reasons for a tariff, like you're charging Bolsonaro, as if this got anything to do with the economy. And so I think a combination of these things are what Vance and Rubio are going to sideline Trump with. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the usurpation.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Don't know what happened there. Sorry about that. Okay. So moving on. A migrant worker is calling proposed spike in housing costs to be deducted as from pay as wicked.
Well, for those who don't know, we have a program for part-time or foreign workers coming into the country around here that's mostly exemplified by farm workers.
Yeah.
Now, farm workers, I don't think have to come up. I think the farmers have to put them up. In other words, they can't charge them for their accommodations or food or something like that. But for other temporary workers, those that work in, say, the fisheries or something like that, they are charged a certain amount for their accommodations. And
again, the employers get the accommodations.
Yeah, but what it says here is the employees are bumming about how much deductions off their wages are for accommodations. Okay.
Yeah, and it's getting above 30% of their wages now.
Yeah, that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
So we do have a very good temporary working program. It's been a few days since I read this either, so I got to catch up quickly on this. So the Migrant Rights Network shared the Canadian press a discussion of a paper from Employment and Social Development Canada. The document outlines possible regulations for a new temporary worker stream for agricultural and fish processing workers. Okay, so what's the government is reviewing a lot of this and trying to delegate the responsibility of who pays for what.
Yeah.
The document sets out a range of possible, like it could be up to 30%. So it's possible, it isn't set in stone. Possible housing deductions employers could charge for shelter under the proposed new stream. At the highest end of that range, the government is considering a deduction of 30% of pre-tax income, about $1,000 per month, according to the discussion. But of course, a migrant worker from Jamaica says that's the highest level of deduction is implemented, is $600 after tax weekly that he pays now. So, then of course, in probably in his thick Jamaican accent, said, "This is wickedness. I am working for $17.23 an hour." So anyway, he's making the point. He's making for minimum wage, $17.23 an hour, and will be expected to throw up $1,000 per month. Of course, all this does is sustain him. That it takes away the reason why he came here in the first place. The reason why he came here in the first place is get as much money as possible to send back home.
Yeah.
And
so that his family at home can survive.
Yeah. So, but that is just a proposal. I don't think they go with a complete 30%. But there's this balance, and I think it's interesting to. Unfortunately, it's been a few days since I've read it, but there's this balance that the government and these workers have. So one of the biggest problems in the United States over and over and over again is illegals. And when they throw the illegals out, illegal workers, when they throw the illegal workers out, there goes your fruit picker, there goes your vegetable picker, and the farms cannot harvest their crops.
Yeah.
When you go to a farm, when they were interviewing farmers, some of them have this temporary work program in the States, and some of them are just plain illegals. The farmers don't really care. They prefer to use the ones that are legal, the temporary workers that are legal that come up, but they'll use anybody because they need it, a lot of workers. Up here, it's a little bit different. You don't get that. What you do get is a lot of temporary workers working on approved programs. But the problem is how much of it, how much will this cost? The whole idea is to bring up cheap labor. And that cheap labor is there to make as much money as it can to take back to a developing country where that dollar will go a lot further than it would here. So that's the trade-off. We need the cheap labor. We can pay them less than we would others, but that's good. That's good for them because that dollar will go a long way where they came from. So where is that sweet spot where the labor and the results of that labor balance themselves out? If you start paying temporary labor like this a lot of money, then it becomes cost ineffective.
Yeah.
Then you're not doing what you need to do, and that is get inexpensive labor.
And part of the reason for having accommodation thrown into this is actually to keep the cost down, the whole cost of this entire thing down. And it's only supposed to be, this type of work really was only originally put in place for things like farm workers and, as you said, fishery.
Yeah, any number of things. We had all kinds of temporary workers. Remember under COVID, it was like how about how government made mistakes. Well, they made a big mistake there because they ended up with massive amounts of temporary workers that we didn't need. We did need them for a while, but the government botched that, and we're still trying to find all the people that came in on that program to get them back out of the country. So but this is different. This is kind of a planned thing. They call it the processed on the processed agricultural and fish processing stream. That includes talks to international partners, industry stakeholders, Migrant Workers Alliance for Change, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The department has no formal, and somewhere in here it says something about looking for feedback. Anyway, basically, how do we treat the workers fair? And how do we keep that program worthwhile? If the program gets too expensive, if the workers become too expensive, then what's the point of having them? If, on the other hand, the workers are exploited too much, that's not good either. In the United States, where they have a lot of illegals, workers being exploited is a big thing. Fill up your fields with illegals. You can pay them or not pay them. You can threaten them with turning them in if they don't work for you. All those kind of things. So we do have to have a program where the worker is being treated fairly, and yet it's still cost beneficial.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Those in the seasonal agricultural worker program this is what I was looking for, cannot be charged by their employer for housing. Workers with low wage stream permits, such as those working for fish processors, can be charged up to 30% of their earnings for employer that provided the housing. The Ontario Fruit and Vegetable Association says its goal is to maintain the seasonal agricultural work program as is, including mobility provisions and programs. Okay, so there's it
so
does
they're
get
looking
into
for status. So in Ontario, the Ontario agricultural workers, they're looking for status quo.
the seasonal basically they already have housing. When I first read the article, I was pretty sure that the agricultural workers right around here were housed. And they are.
Well, they're basically saying here, I noticed the other ad on here was there's no AC in the house, but it's okay. It's legal. In any case, it's kind of probably better that it's probably, I'm not going to say better, but it's probably on a par with where they live back home. And they're saying the bosses are not breaking any rules because the start of the season, these houses are supposed to be inspected and passed by the relevant authorities. And so they're not breaking the rules, right?
Well, yeah, there's always good bosses, bad bosses, good workers, bad workers.
Oh, absolutely. And we're not disputing that. Good landlords and bad landlords in that respect as well. All right. We need migrant workers to be Canadian workers. Yeah, I generally would agree, Mike.
No, I don't. I don't. Like it would be nice to be able to take Canadians and put them in the farm fields, but you can't find people to do it. And this has been going on a decade after decade. As a matter of fact, they did an experiment in the United States, the details of which I can't remember. Not an experiment, actually, but there was a complaint about migrant workers coming up into the States. And so there was a student program to take over for the illegals that were coming up from the States. And what they did was they set up, all right, well, we'll just send our students out there to take over for them. This was decades ago. And the students in the university, so these are all young men and women, but mostly men back in them days, were set about going to the farms and working the farms instead of the illegals. They're lucky if most of them didn't last a week. Other ones hung in there, hung in for about a month, and then they ran away. So they couldn't handle the work. They couldn't handle the conditions. They just wouldn't. There was alternatives for them. But so this was the big thing. We're going to make sure that we don't need, we can work these farms cheaply with student labor. Well, the students ran away. And who was right there to step right in? The illegals. Here we are.
Yeah.
And so nothing was solved.
Yeah. All right. Niagara Falls Fire is considering cost-saving dispatch services and merger with St. Catharines. This is a year after this was first proposed, and the fire officials hoo-hawed this whole thing, and now it's back on the table.
Yes, and the article says, what's the title of it? Can you give me the title? I have to bring it up.
The Niagara Falls looking into fire dispatch with St. Catharines. Oh, well, it says, sorry, we're not a cheap fire department. Niagara Falls is to reconsider the cost-saving merger with St. Catharines.
Yes, we our fire department costs us a lot per capita. It's quite a bit, actually. It's compared to a place that has similar budgets. We do have about half as much as other cities that do about half the do what we do. I'm trying to find the figures here that I'm looking. I'm right at the city city council page. I'm looking at the agenda now.
Yeah, and what they're basically saying is the merger was pitched as a cost-saving initiative, but Niagara Falls fire officials originally argued that the quality of emergency response could be compromised. In the city council,
actually, it is actually what Burgess is saying before and after. That is the opposite of what would happen.
This was what was being argued by the fire department last year.
Yes, and what Burgess argued then, and he's arguing now, is no, that's not the case at all. As a matter of fact, the newer report tells us that they are probably going to be less capable than joining St. Catharines. And I'm looking for the
dispatch. So St. Catherine's neighbor, the city dispatch service is a more economical option. But of course, one of the things is the fire department was saying that there wouldn't be any savings by merging these two departments. I think there would.
Yes, as a matter of fact, there would be, because our system has to be upgraded now. What was different from the last time was they wanted us to keep their system here and have control over their own dispatch, and that, whereas almost every other city is joining other cities in a unified dispatch, which makes it cheaper, and they share the expenses. But we don't. We don't do that here. Oh gosh, I'm trying to find that, and I just can't find it here. Unfortunately, it would be very good. What happens if you look at and I just can't find it at a glance right now, but our per capita fire department is not cheap. And if you compare it with Barrie or other departments that have a similar budget, very similar budget, we get about half the service that
but Barrie's
that Barrie would get.
Yeah, but Barrie's a much larger city than Niagara Falls.
No, they're talking about comparable fire departments.
Yeah.
So with comparable budgets. So if you look at that, Barrie has double the calls that our fire department has, and on the same kind of budget. And what Burgess had pointed out last time is they could save $240,000 of let me get back to where I'm here. Yeah, sorry about that. I had trying to find some information there, but I couldn't. But if you go to the agenda, the City Hall agenda, there are two opposing proposals, and this is very rare. The City Council voted for to keep the dispatch here in Niagara Falls, but now the price tag for that has come in, and it's very clear. And Burgess is trying to, CEO Jason Burgess is trying to make another pitch. Remember that when Mona Patel said, we're asking you to find $1 million worth of savings.
Yeah.
And Jason Burgess said to them, yeah, I'll find it, but you won't like it, but I'll find it. And the first thing he came up with was a real no-brainer, saying we should move our dispatch for our fire department to St. Catherine's, a collective dispatch there. We could save $240,000. So there you go, 1/4 of what they asked for, and the city councilors are very afraid of the fire department. Mike Strange made a big thing. Oh, well, if we could save just 2 seconds by having the dispatch here. He never heard one word or understood one word of Jason Burgess's report that day, which made it very clear that it would be as efficient, if not more efficient, to go with St. Catherine's. Those people that worked in the dispatch would not have lost their jobs and has actually made more. Another thing that is put out. Wait a minute. Another thing that was pointed out in this report was that they use suppression staff as dispatchers. In other words, they use firefighters to do the dispatch.
Yeah, and they should not be doing. Firefighters shouldn't be sitting in on dispatch jobs. The two different jobs. Yeah, and the dispatch here in Niagara Falls is at Lundy's Lane Firehouse. So yes, that's how come they're using firefighters in the dispatch office.
It's common practice for fire departments everywhere to have combined services. Yes. And you think, well, this will break down. No, in the report, it's very, very good report. like there's two proposals there. The one to enhance our service as it is, the one that Niagara Falls wants by itself, self-controlled fire department, or the one that is championed by Burgess to connect with other services because it makes it more efficient, cost effective, and you get the best service, technology service. So here we have in Niagara Falls some of our own firefighters sitting in a dispatch, which is a problem because their skill levels at dispatch will fade, basically depending on how often they do it and when they do it, and so it's inconsistent.
Yeah.
But there's a redundancy thing has to happen. For instance, the 911 system that we were using, according to this report, is outdated. It's 30 years old, has to be brought up to standard. This is what the government is saying. You got to do that.
Yeah.
You got to bring in this new technology because it's better, it's more efficient, etc. I will add too, though, our dispatch, we can argue against our own dispatch because our response times are way above what the government wants. The government wants the dispatch to go out so many seconds. Ours is very slow compared to other fire departments. It's all in the report too.
Yeah.
So our dispatch is not efficient now. It's below standard for getting a vehicle out there or responding to a call.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. So there's, and of course, our firefighters take up, the fire department takes up 1/4 of
the
our
budget. Yeah.
resources.
Yeah. And how much of this will be reduced? You know, if we're reducing costs by moving this to St. Catharines, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, but you have this kind of like you had Mike Strange arguing last time, not this time. I didn't. I didn't watch the whole part of that city council meeting because I had somebody over, but I don't know what Mike said at that time. But pretty much what the city council pretty much acquiesced to the fire department because they made their case. Well, a few seconds might make a difference, and Mike Strange was up there, but you could tell he didn't know what he was talking about. You could tell that he didn't understand the report that Burgess had given, and I think this gives us some sort of pause. We may be able to save some money now after all because the councillors are more aware now.
It bothers me when a city council member doesn't bother to read their paperwork. We rely upon them to do so.
Well, look, Burgess gave the presentation the last time, not this time, but last time when they brought this up.
I know.
He read it. He read it out there for them all. Yeah. Right. He gave his position right there. Even if they hadn't read it before time, he gave out that position. Now, if you read it beforehand, you could do a little research if you want, but I don't, but it was spelt out there, and pretty much everybody just kind of shut it off. La 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 la. The fire department wants this. We'll go with them. We don't have to make a decision on it. The fire department's made it for us. And Burgess, of course, being very frustrated, and as a matter of fact, goes right back to Mona Patel saying, "Where's the $1 million?" Or we want $1 million cut, and Burgess gives her $250,000 right there, and she even voted against it. So what is the point?
Yeah.
If you're not going to do your research, if you're voting not to save the $240,000, and you haven't taken the time to understand why it was a good idea, then what are you doing there?
Yeah, and it's bothersome. It's bothersome that we've got city councillors that are not reading the paperwork they're supplied with. All right, because a year ago, had they made that decision, okay, so got another opportunity to actually make the decision to save the money, but a year ago it could have had a better impact than today.
I think we're going to break the iron grip that the fire department has on the city, because the firefighters are not arguing from technically savvy perspective.
No.
You're just saying we should stay here because it's better and we're unique. Yeah, that might have been okay when you had to use a telephone, but and describe things, but whatever. Nowadays, that argument does not carry water.
Yeah, and with the use of these smart devices, we've got whole new ways of that dispatches required.
Plus, the new dispatches would have redundancies and backups. For instance, in the report, I really do advise everybody to read that, because there's massive amounts of information in there that you don't get in the city council meeting. Like, for instance, we do not dispatch effectively. We do our firefighters here for on a same budget as Barrie. Well, it was compared also to Hamilton and others. Per capita, we do less than half of what Barrie does, and yet we cost the same. So if we're costing the same as Barrie, and they're doing more than twice as much of us as ours is, why aren't we being able to trim some of the budget?
And exactly. The whole point about it is that typically with smaller city, Barrie's a much, much larger city than Niagara Falls. And I know you're talking per capita, but but on that basis, typically larger can do better more effectively.
I'm not so sure. I'm looking for the population of Barrie right now.
350,000. I looked it up.
Okay, 350. Okay, 350,000. But they have a similar budget. So they have a similar budget, same amount of money. Now, of course, Niagara Falls can make the argument that we were unique. We have the gorge, we have other things, we have the falls, we have big.
Well, yeah, and some of that is more costly. That's for sure.
Things like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can make up. So you can say Barrie, with a population of 3 times of ours, has the same budget for a fire department, does twice as much for the same amount of money. So their per capita service is much better than ours, and so you can make the argument that our service, because of the uniqueness of our city, we're okay with having half the calls for the same price. So you have to ask yourself, Barrie is a city of 300,000 people, has the same fire department budget as we do, a city of 1/3 the size.
Yeah.
Some of that can be argued that we have a unique city, but can all of it be?
No, only some of it. Yes, we've got rescues out of the gorge and things like that do add to the expense of the fire department. There is no doubt we can agree that right on this table, right? That's just not going to increase the cost for the dispatcher, but it's going to increase the cost for the the amount of time the fireman on the job is actually spending doing some of these things. But again, is that definitely distinctly unique? Because maybe you have odd situations in Barrie that are the same issues.
Basically, what it is, it's a clear revelation that our fire department is very expensive for what we get.
Yeah,
and here we have a chance, and I think it's just a pure ignorance of the counselors and the fire department themselves, trying to understand the technology, that we won't move our dispatch from Niagara Falls out when it would save us like $240,000. And particularly now, when you have to upgrade our system every system has to be upgraded, and
Yeah.
we'll have to upgrade ours separately from St. Catherine's. If we join St. Catherine's, the same upgrade would be for us as well as everyone else.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we're over time,
Oh, we
and I
are.
will bring up Gaza right now. We are seeing more food going into Gaza, but not nearly as much. The IDF, who could conquer Hezbollah and beat the crap out of Iran, somehow can't find a safe corridor for food going into Gaza, which is 25 miles long and 5 miles wide. The most effective, well-trained, well-armed military cannot ensure safe corridors for food. Big lie. Anyway, it's happening. The pressure is on them. They are still in denial, but something is happening, and I hope that this continues. But when you got somebody like Trump saying if Canada recognizes Palestine, there'll be a 30% tariff, go get stuffed. Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu.
Bye.